So, hi everyone. A very warm welcome to Mr. Nick Papageorge and our viewers to this episode of DLive.in podcast. Nick is based in Denmark and he's into endurance sports for close to 5 odd decades. He's an engineer, a triathlete, and has two Ironman titles to his credit. Adhering to a very disciplined low carb lifestyle, he achieved great success, not just with sports performance, but also with metabolic health. Before we begin, a quick info for all those watching this podcast. This is not a medical or nutritional advice. People are requested to take the guidance of their doctors and low carb nutritionist. Also, there are no financials attached to this session. DLive.in is a community platform for low carbers. It's a platform for those suffering from diabetes, PCOS, obesity, and other metabolic syndromes. DLive.in has 250 plus success stories and 1200 plus low carb Indian recipes. DLive Diploma is already became a benchmark in the low carb space, and which already has started gathering attention even from people abroad. DLive.in was founded and developed by Anup Singh, who's an engineer from IIT Roorkee. And your host for today is Yogesh Dixit. I'm a member of DLive.in and I'm a lifestyle coach and certified low carb nutritionist. And for one more time, DLive.in के इस एपिसोड में आपका स्वागत है निक जी. For our viewers, निक जिनको हम प्यार से निक साहब बुलाते हैं, right? I mean, उनकी हिंदी की जानकारी काफी अच्छी है. But however, we'll have this episode in English. In fact, he's a multilingual, right? I mean, he can speak and understand many other languages. But this particular episode we'll have it in English for various reasons. And the structure of this episode is a bit different from our usual episodes. So what we'll do is like Nick will take us through a few insightful slides covering today's topic, that is lifestyle and metabolic health. And post which we'll have a Q&A. So please feel free to ask as many questions on the topic as much possible. So without any further ado, let's begin today's session and over to Nick. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Yogesh, and thank you, Shashi and DLive and everyone else that has joined. I've got so many slides and I'll try and go through it so we also have time and we don't spend all evening or early mornings or middle of the day on it. Yes, without further ado, a little bit of background. I am not a doctor. I'm not even a medic or a nutritionist. I'm an engineer able to think logically. Simple as that. I'm 58 years old, married. And as Yogesh said, I've trained all my life, probably 50 years. I think I started at primary school running cross-country and stuff. But this particular talk is not about the endurance and the sports and the athletics part of it. These are just my thoughts based on personal experiences, Twitter, reading. There's no cutbacks, there's no conflicts of interest, and no medical advice. It is actually common sense when we think about it. So straight into it. What is good metabolic health? You know, good indicators. Being able to walk upstairs, sitting on the floor, mental clarity, jogging. And we're not talking about marathons, just being able to run. Crawling on the floor with babies, children, playing with children. These are, you know, just thoughts, being muscular toned. And there's a slide on that, which I'll get back to later. Living to see grandchildren. These are like indicators of good metabolic health. Poor metabolic health. Yeah, overweight, leaky gut, high blood pressure, snoring, on medication, pot belly, diabetics, skin problems, flaky skin, that we sort of take for granted when you get older. Then when we get older, these things are just part of life. It's part of getting older. But they are indications of poor metabolic health. So I don't know if there's any doctors. I've invited one doctor, but I don't think he'll join. There are 3 nutrition types, and I won't go too deep into the technical stuff. I'll share these slides, and I think also the video will be shared. And feel free to ask me questions. That's not a problem. but I won't go too deep into the technical parts. Just suffice to say that there are 3 nutrient types: protein, fats, and carbohydrates. Carbohydrates, bread, including bread, pasta, rice, are not essential nutrients. They are not essential. Correct? Muscles, brain, including brains, hearts, they need glucose to function. But the human body can create all the glucose it needs from fat, mainly, amino acids, and protein. Exercise, of course, does, and however light it is, does help maintain muscle, which is an important, and I'll come to a slide on that specifically. And unfortunately, as muscle decays, as we get older, muscle decays. So we have to try and maintain it in whatever way we can. Every little bit helps. So yes. Carbohydrate synthesis. Actually, this starts in the mouth. If you try eating a piece of bread, I know we're low carbers here, but try a piece of white bread. If you don't swallow it, just continue. It tastes like sugar. In the mouth already there, it starts becoming pure glucose, sugar.
Yeah.
And once it gets into our body, then it causes the blood sugar to rise. All sugar does, including whole meal sugar. For the muscles to use the glucose in the blood, insulin is required to open cells to absorb the sugar, to push the sugar, the glucose, into the cells. The remaining sugar stays in the blood, increases blood sugar levels even more, and ultimately is stored for fat as fat for later use. The liver stores a considerable amount of fat, and that's how the body works. So the body has a limited capacity of storing glucose in muscles for usage. And I come from a running background or a sports background, and traditionally used to say that 2.5 hours exercise, or roughly 36 kilometers of running, and then your sugar is depleted. But that is if you are very, very sugar dependent, ingesting sugars, and your body doesn't create any sugar or glucose from fat. Yeah, so the glucose, of course, that is not used by the body, it is converted into fat. And there's something that's very interesting, is that the average healthy body requires 3.6 to 5.8 millimole per liters of glucose at any given time. That is the amount of glucose that has to go around the body at any given time. I know in North America, they've got different ways of measuring this, but yeah, at the end of the day, this is roughly 1 teaspoon. Think of this, 1 teaspoon of sugar is needed in the body constantly. And none of it needs to be ingested, because the body just takes from the fat, converts to sugar. So imagine when we drink half a bottle of Coca-Cola, which has, 12 teaspoons of sugar. Surely something would go wrong. Yeah, now this is, it's a little bit on hunger mechanisms. The human body is not a thermodynamic machine. So I'm an engineer. It's not this sicko calories in, calories out. It is not calories in, calories out. It is not a machine. The concept of a calorie for the body, it is meaningless, essentially. Some people even say it's pseudoscience because it's based on thermodynamics. Hunger is not managed by the amount of stuff we have in our stomach. No, it's managed by hormones. Primarily insulin, leptin, ghrelin. Insulin for, like we said, blood and fat regulation. Leptin, regulation of triglycerides in the blood. And ghrelin for satiation. This is when these and other hormones work in harmony, when we are metabolically healthy. They are there, they've evolved over millions of years to help us achieve this satiation. So hormones react on quality of food and not quantity. Interesting. And if we think about it as common sense, going back to like engineering, we shouldn't need to constantly eat. We shouldn't need to constantly eat. In the past, even 100 years ago, we couldn't eat constantly. So bodies are designed to be able to sustain itself. Yeah. And this is a little diagram. We eat, sugar levels rise, especially if we eat some sort of carbohydrates. The pancreas pumps out some insulin, the sugar levels drop, and then we start getting hungry again. And it's a cyclical thing. I've got another slide which explains it a little bit. But here a little bit about insulin and insulin resistance. As we said, insulin is primarily used to stabilize blood sugar levels. That's what it's mainly known for. But secondarily, and maybe even more importantly, it's used to stop fat burning. The body gets lots of sugar in the body. Insulin is pumped out to get rid of the sugar. But then insulin is also the signal given to the brain or to the body to stop producing more sugar, glucose, from the fat. So it stops fat burning. Remember that. We stop fat burning when we have high levels of insulin. Now, the problem is when we have high levels of blood sugar over decades, this causes high levels of insulin. And ultimately, the body becomes addicted to the insulin and it requires more and more insulin. And then we get this term called insulin resistance. So the body requires even more insulin secretion to lower sugar levels. And ultimately, when there's high levels of insulin, no fat burning. On the contrary, the fat is stored. Now, the insulin secretion is done by the pancreas to stabilize blood sugar levels. And this is on lifestyle. It's not only on low carb and keto and stuff. It's, lifestyle, because to be honest, it's not sugar levels increase. Yes, because of sugar and carbohydrate ingestion, but also when we wake up in the morning, this dawn phenomenon, the body knows the sun is rising, knows we have to get up, knows that it needs to have some more glucose to move around, to go running, whatever we want to do. So insulin rises. Yes. It's also used in fight or flight cases. If we see a tiger, what we're going to do? We're going to fight it, we're going to run away. Either way, testosterone is created, which is another hormone, which also requires glucose, which also requires insulin to raise. Stress at work, through cortisol, another hormone. And also, when eating proteins, we get a very slight increase of insulin secretion, very slight one. With fat, pure animal fat, be it lard or ghee, there is no blood levels increase. There is no insulin at all required. But notice, natural animal fats, coconut and olive oil as well. But vegetable oils, the so-called vegetable oils, they are not natural fats. There's a slide about that later, remember.
Yeah.
There is these CGMs that are becoming a little bit popular, and some diabetics organizations even giving them out, at least in Denmark. Some are getting them free of charge. But they show real-time blood sugar levels, indicating what food types increase what blood levels. It's not the same as insulin secretion, but there is a good indication. Blood levels go up, blood sugar levels go up, insulin also goes up. Yeah, this is the slide. I'll very briefly mention it, and there's a couple more that I'll spring over in the light of time. You know, we wake up, we have breakfast, blood sugar goes up, it's the black. Insulin afterwards goes up, and the excess goes to stored as fat. When the insulin goes down, we start some sort of sugar craving. And it happens again at lunch, it happens again at dinner. In this country, my ex-wife, when she was trying to lose weight 25 years ago, we even believed it, that it would be better. We were told by the authorities, public health, to eat 6 times a day because the metabolism in that way will be constantly running. It'd be like an engine burning diesel all the time. But what would actually happen is that you get not 3 peaks, but 6 peaks.
Yeah.
And the insulin levels never come down. So over decades, the red goes up, 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 up. It never comes down.
Yeah. This is a very powerful slide, Nick, by the way. Yeah. I mean, we can come back to this if required later, or even now also if you want to share any other thoughts, but very powerful. Thanks.
Yeah. As I said, I'll share the slides and feel free to ask. But this is also, I'd rather not go into it because it's essentially the same. You know, you get the glucose spikes, insulin comes down, then you get a glucose crash, causing hunger. And this is a little bit the same. I mean, look at it yourselves. We don't want to fertilize the tree of metabolic illness or metabolic syndromes by the starch, grains, and sugars, causing the insulin resistance and fatty liver disease. I'd rather move on and keep it a little bit light-hearted, so it's not really technical. But these are some quotations. The first one is my father-in-law. He was brought up on a Danish farm. He remembers giving the fattened cows to be fattened, skinny milk, and drinking the full fat cream himself. Skinny milk and corn so that they got fatter. He told me this 10 years ago. Wow. When he grew up 70, 60 years ago. And what is it we give our children? Skinny milk and cornflakes to get them fat. It's amazing. He remembers the breeding pig, the boar, also got full fat cream, and that was muscular. That was muscular.
Absolutely, yeah.
Amazing. Then I've something here in Danish. I never go sugar cold. Like when running, a lot of athletes, they go after 2.5 hours, they go sugar cold, or they go in the afternoon after working, after lunch, they go sugar cold. They need a Coke or they need something to pick them up.
Yeah.
Well, I said I never go sugar cold because I never eat sugar. Actually, quite simple.
All right.
No ups and downs of sugar levels. It's just the body creates all the sugar it needs. Flatline.
Yeah. Is that hitting the wall phenomenon in running world? Yes,
it's called it's known as the bonk in especially in Europe and North America. The bonk.
Yep.
And I've tried it myself when I was high carb. I have tried it myself on numerous occasions. You're running fine, 30 kilometers, 30, 31, 32, 33, and then all of a sudden you're just hit. And it is because your sugar levels are depleted.
Yep.
Whatever amount of carb loading you did the day before, you can only store a certain amount. And they're depleted. And if your body is not, to a certain extent, fat adapted, then it takes a while before it can start creating glucose from the fat. Yeah. This is something I saw on the internet, a couple of quotations. We are not designed to be chronically sick. We are not designed to be chronically sick. Actually, we are designed to live a good life and then all of a sudden die. We're not supposed to be 20 or 30 years on all sorts of medications. Which is the next one. There's no amount of dawa, medications, Roxana and Vic. There's no amount of medications that will make us healthy. True, some medication, e.g. antibiotics, may cure us. But none of it will make us healthy. That's also something I saw on the internet. That's interesting, isn't it? When we think about it logically. Then here's a quote I found this morning, Yogesh. I have to thank you actually, by Phil Maffetone. This is from 2018, and this is mainly because I brought it up because it's and there's a link to it at one of the last slides. Because I thought, you know, the life, it's mainly Desi population here, but based on the levels of overweight, obesity, and those with excessive pot belly fat, it is estimated that in India, 70 to 80% of adults and 41% of children are over fat. Guys, that's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And frightening. Because one thing is being over fat, but the subsequent problems that come with the being over fat or obesity is the diabetes, the leaky gut, the Alzheimer's, cancer that people also relating to it. It's amazing. It's a ticking bomb.
Absolutely. I mean, so that was an interesting discussion between this thing, right? I mean, in the morning with Dr. Phil. And I believe there are, I mean, as a part of the Obesity Day yesterday, World Obesity Day, right? I mean, a lot of statistics which are being floated, available. So we probably, as a population, I think we need to get exposed and a lot of analytical about all those stats and get an understanding about how critical obesity is a problem. And I'm sure that you're going to be covering a bit about that from a lifestyle standpoint, how to basically arrest that. So yeah, thanks for that.
So yeah, a slide on, or a couple of slides on lifestyle. Going back to this thing about the insulin and how it works. Eating an equal amount of calories. I know we said calories are sort of pseudoscience, but let's just say some amount, 2,000 or 3,000 or 1,000, doesn't matter, of carbohydrates, protein, and natural fat will result in added weight on a carbohydrate diet. Why? As I said before, carbohydrates cause blood sugar to rise, resulting in insulin fluctuation or insulin rising, which constantly results in the lack of fat burning. Lack of fat burning is the same as storing of fat. So even if we eat the same amount of calories, eating carbohydrates will store more fat. Now, fat is not as heavy as muscle and blah, 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 but we are storing more fat, especially in the liver. Yeah, strange. Not strange, but yeah, it's logical. So ultimately, satiation is fundamental to metabolic health and well-being. It is satiation. If we are hungry, then there's no amount of willpower. Weight Watchers, my ex-wife was also on Weight Watchers, where you have to count so many, you're constantly hungry. Sooner or later you break down, you have to eat. I compare it to thirst. When you're thirsty enough, and I'm not talking about Sandeep, well, no, I'm not talking about 5 kilometers or even 10 kilometers. I'm talking about desert thirsty. You could kill someone to get something to drink.
Yeah.
And hunger is a bit the same. Yeah. Now, of course, exercise, any exercise. And I've mentioned something here, Goya, this Get Off Your Arse by another friend of mine, Indian friend of mine, Dr. Rajat, who I also mentioned. There's no need for subscriptions. We don't need to go to gyms. We don't need to run ultra marathons. We don't need to cycle huge amounts.
Yeah.
I know some of us train, and that is really good. And it is also very important. but we don't need to do excessive amounts.
Yeah.
Other things that are so important as part of metabolic health is social life. You know, friends, laughters, challenges, stress, having work, all these things are also important. Social life.
So some of these are actually aligned to, let's say, people who live in the blue zones, or maybe the ikigai, right? I mean, so a lot of those things, I mean, it is not just the physiological aspect, a lot of psychological or mental aspects, socializing connects. So a lot of those things, I mean, it's a combination of many things, not just one. Thanks for highlighting that, Nick. Yeah.
It's, yeah, I didn't want this one to be, I forgot to say actually, this slide deck or this presentation, I did it for some colleagues who work, Desi's all of them, who work for TCS Tata Consulting Services.
Yeah.
They asked me for some inspiration, and I didn't want to try and inspire them by saying, oh, I've done it, Ironman, I've done ultra running, I've done marathons, because that's nonsense for them. It has to be other things, which it is. It's a combination of things. It's not only sports.
True. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, nutritious food. Meat, fish, eggs, cream, butter, lard. Basically to keep the insulin levels steady and the satiation, so we're satiated. So avoid anything that is processed.
Yep.
Remember this, it is not food, it is engineered for profit. Think about vegetable oils, E-numbers, shelf life. They do not make this for our health. They do not even make it so that we can be satiated. They do not even make it, maybe they make it so we can feel good, but it's only a short feel good. It's like an addiction. We have to have some more. They engineer these products so that we buy them and we buy them again. They do not do them for our health. And think about this. My grandmother didn't even know about them. I think most of you guys, your great-grandmother didn't know about them.
Yep.
They were healthy. Another aspect of this, improving lifestyle and metabolic health. All religions have practiced fasting. And even my grandmother used to do it, as part of the religious part. It was a natural thing. It induces this autophagy, removal of old cells or decaying cells being eaten by new generated cells.
Yeah.
It stabilizes the insulin. If we eat 6 times a day and we fast for 12 hours, then at least the insulin has a chance of coming down, as has the blood sugar.
Yep.
And yes, we can do more than 24 hours. We can, there's people that are doing it. Yogesh, I think you did 72 hours. It is possible. It's not, the body is capable of doing it.
Yep. No, absolutely. I think a couple of important aspects, and we can, so one is about fasting. We can have even a separate session. I think both of us, many of us probably align to that particular philosophy and approach. The other important thing that you mentioned about the processed food, and while I was also doing my research and looking at different things, so around 50% of world economy currently, the market share is occupied with by the food industry, right? I mean, be it restaurant plus superstores and processed foods, but that's the huge amount of market share, 15-20%, and that is what I think leading us to become the kind of obese and people and population that we have become in last 50 odd years. Yeah, but these are very interesting points. Thanks for sharing that.
And I don't want to start conspiracy theories, but do they go hand in hand with the pharma industry?
Yeah. No, absolutely.
I mean, one is causing the other, and one is trying to resolve the one, but they're not looking at the root causes.
Yes.
Because there's no profit.
So big agri, and then the whole cartel of a number of industries. I mean, it's a chain, right? So yeah, we can talk about that probably in separate session. But yeah, you're right.
Yes, this special note on vegetable oils. These have got absolutely nothing to do with vegetables. At the very best, they are seed oils. made from seeds, safflower or rapeseed or sunflower. But in actual fact, they are industrial sludge. Do the research yourselves. Vegetable oils are originally a result, I think it was the cottonseed industry that created something that was sludge that they could not use from the production of cotton. They could hydrogenate it, and then they made it solid, so it looked like a bit like butter, and then they colored it and it looked a bit more like butter, and they start selling that to people. But it is industrial waste.
Yes.
Very, very highly processed, very, very, very cheap.
Yep.
And very dangerous.
To be best used as a lubricant, I guess. That's exactly the possible best use. Yeah.
Lubricant, and I would not even put them in my car. I would not.
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Now, a special note on muscle tone. This came up in the last time with my colleagues, and they said, hey, what do you mean? We're not talking about bodybuilders here. I know some of us train. But we should be able to have some visible or at least feelable muscles, in the arms, the chest, the buttocks, stomach. Through whatever exercise we can do, through walking, through going upstairs, through, if you enjoy going to gym, go to gym or own gym or going running. And why is this? Now, this is my own logic. If we have or can feel some external muscles, then there's a good chance that we've got internal muscles. Like heart, which are muscles, brain, adductor, rectus muscles, psoas. We have some muscles that we can't see, but they are functioning.
Yeah.
Continuation of that is if we have good internal muscles, then there's a good chance that our internal, supposed to say, organs are good.
Yeah.
Our kidneys, our spleen, our liver, pancreas, that they are working, that they are metabolically healthy. So, and I'm not, again, we don't have to be bodybuilders here. No.
Yeah.
Just that we can feel some muscles, see some muscles. Then there's an indication that we've got them internally. There's an indication that our internal organs are better off.
Absolutely. And muscle, that's an interesting aspect, very important aspect. Recently came across a particular term that that's the biggest organ in our body, the muscle is, right? I mean, and that essentially is the most important aspect which is governing our metabolics. So muscle health is very important. I think most of us have been ignoring that the population has been ignoring that, but that definitely has to be getting in the center. The center stage, right? A lot of focus that it deserves. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's this term TOFI, some of you might have heard of it, thin on outside, fat inside. People that are very, very slim and ultimately look healthy, but not a single muscle in them, especially young girls. And I'm not being prejudiced here or anything, because it's fit, we've got to be slim. Not a single muscle in them. They're actually quite unhealthy, or there's a good chance that they might be unhealthy.
True. Yeah.
So, guys, wake up. Yeah. I've got quite a few more slides, but they are very brief and we'll go through. Has anyone got questions now?
Oh, yeah. We'll definitely have. See, I'll start with one and kind of an icebreaker. So, and this is an interesting conversation that I've had. Not so interesting, but I'll still quote it. There's a question that I've got, that where do you get all this time to do multiple activities, be it running, be it walking, be it whatever that you're doing in terms of investing, let's say even 45-50 minutes an hour every single day. So where do you get that time? We have families, we have kids, we absolutely don't get any time. So what's your take on that, Nick? That's going to be really insightful for many people, many viewers.
I would like others to also, who exercise, to also come up with their take on it. But for me, it is simple. Guys, it's a prioritization. We all have to go to work, and I've worked in India, and it takes, I've been on business trips, and it takes 2 hours to go to the office. I could run to the office in 1 hour.
Yeah.
So it's a prioritization.
Yep. Absolutely.
And to do 20 minutes on the floor every day, guys, that is nothing. That is nothing. And then, maybe walk in the evening with your wife or your children or your grandchildren. It's a prioritization. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And I know, especially Indian mothers are very busy with all sorts of things, including children, including grandparents, including all sorts of stuff. But it is a prioritization. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So before we open up for the questions on the chat, there is one more question that I've got before we started off this particular podcast, right? I mean, some of the questions are queued up for that. So one is typically from the runners, and considering your very huge experience, Nick, this is going to be very beneficial for most of the runners. So how do you look at low carb and long distance running? How viable that is? Because people here in India definitely still are under, or most places I would say, they are still under this particular notion that you should be loading up a lot of carbs during the running, before running, during running, and even post running. So what's your thoughts on that?
When you are fat adapted, you can continue forever. Yep. I promise you. Mm-hmm. I've got another slide deck that and experiences of when I was a few years ago, I was swimming a lot because I was actually injured from running. I was swimming a lot, and I can swim and I'm a good swimmer, but I'm not a very good swimmer. Mm-hmm. And I swam 21 kilometers in a lake. I did it 2 years. Yep. It was a race. Yep. First year took 8 hours. Second year took 9 hours. I was in better shape second year, mm-hmm. but it was worse weather. Second year I traveled. I did it with some triathlon friends of mine.
Yep.
And yeah, I have a slide on it somewhere else. I don't know where it is. I won't be able to find it so quickly. Yep. But the bottom line is that I did it. I had dinner of a steak and egg, and I had breakfast of bacon and eggs. And I did not eat anything in the 9 hours. Nothing. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I drank water from the lake. Yeah. These guys, they ate all day the day before. They were eating. In the morning, they were eating. They had to stop for 5 stops to eat and drink isotonic drinks.
Right.
But it's not needed.
Yeah. No, and it's wonderful, right? I mean, all these experiences, because I think you can relate yourself or most of the other experiences with, let's say, what Professor Tim Noakes, right? I mean, he came across and he's been talking about that since last maybe couple of decades. How I think he and some of his colleagues were carb adapted running, and then how they got converted to, let's say, being low carb and then running. So I believe, I mean, not just a sports performance, but a lot of positive impact is there on the metabolic health as well. I mean, including this particular approach of being fat adapted, low carb.
Yes, I think because for us, we're all normal athletes or normal people. We're not elite in any manner at all.
Yeah.
Because you could argue that the elite, they have to find some margins of this and that. But so for us, I think the main thing should be our health, and the secondary thing should be our enjoyment of running or swimming or cycling or whatever. Sure, it also increases the muscle, which makes us more healthy, but the main thing should be our health.
Absolutely. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for that. So we'll take up some questions that I can get to see here on the chat. So the first one is how to convert fat into muscle. So I'm sure that there's
Yogesh, can I ask?
Yeah, can we go through the questions in the chat first? Yeah. So first question is how to convert fat into muscle. Is there any magic? I don't think so, but what's your take on that, I mean?
There is no magic. I think the fat, the magic is that the fat gets converted into glucose through the gluconeogenesis process. And then if you do some physical resistance, especially Vic knows better than me, resistance training, then you convert it to muscle. Yeah. And unfortunately, the older we get, the more resistance training you have to do to keep the muscle. But
So a kind of a discipline has to be basically attained in terms of both food as well as exercises. and it need not be very high intensity, but a disciplined, consistent exercise is definitely required, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's no magic silver bullet over here. There is definitely an effort that is required, very structured effort that is required. The next question, Nick, is since you are an athlete, how do you relate exercise and fasting together?
I mean, when I run most days a week, I don't eat anything before I go running.
Yeah.
I eat maybe at noon, or I drink some. Okay, today I drank some of this turmeric milk, but no need.
Yeah. And again, there is an aspect of training that is involved over here. So you have trained your body, your mind in terms of being fat adapted, and it's probably a months or maybe years of process where you basically can then start running longer distances without even having any food in a fasted manner. So very, let's say a consistent training is very much required over here.
Yeah, but important for me to state, it's not the training of the running; it's the training of the fat adaptation.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because,
yeah. Sorry, I mean, I mean by that the fat training in terms of how long we can be. We can stay in a fasted mode, being fat adapted. Yeah, right. Thanks. So we'll go to the next one. Pre-event carb loading is a fad with the majority of the runners here. I think we spoke about that. Next is from Ame. Is it must to reduce running speed where you age is above 40 years? So do we need to think about heart rate zones? So typically for people who are like 40 plus or maybe a little older, right? I mean, anything in particular from an heart rate standpoint?
I think I'm also a fan of this film Mafatona because to be able to the lower the heart rate, the better off you are in the long run.
Yeah.
Also, if I just take another way of looking at young people that I'm, asking to go running and stuff, they go, young people 20, 30, 40 years old, because now they're going to get fit. They start running and they start running far too fast, and they run for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And it's just too hard, and then they get injured, and then they get tired, and then they get this and that. So rather run slowly where you can talk to yourself all the way and build there.
Yeah. And Maffetone approach can be exercised, right? I mean, can be leveraged. Yeah. Okay, cool. So the next one is from Megha. How often, how to strike a balance between strength train and cardio? Let's say on a weekly basis, any particular guideline on that?
I prefer cardio, and that's what I do. And then I do some push-ups and some kettlebell stuff, and then that's it. But I prefer running.
Yeah, body weight workouts, kettlebells. Yeah.
Okay. I know Vicky does lots of heavy exercise, which is also very good. I don't think it makes such a big difference. I don't think so. Yeah.
Okay. And next one is, I think you already answered about between resistance training and cardio. So most often you do cardio and then some body weight, club that with some body weight workouts, kettlebells and things like that. Yeah. Okay. So I think someone was asking a question, I think few minutes back. Is that covered over here?
Yogesh, I have a question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Nick, what do you think about for someone who's weight training and who's metabolically healthy, taking carbs or let's say including fructose in and about 100 grams in and out training time? I think should be fine. Would that be a big deal?
Let me answer in Hindi. Pata nahi. I don't know. I think ultimately it depends on how metabolically healthy we are.
Right.
I'll give an example. The Kenyan runners, who are the best runners of the world, Eliud Kipchoge, we will never find out exactly what he eats. Because these are secrets. But traditionally, they eat high carbs. Very high carbs. They eat a maize meal called ugali.
Ugali,
which is high carbs. But they are fat adapted from birth. Like we all are, by the way. When we're born, we are fat adapted, because this is something I'd just like to mention this. When we are born, everyone should know, most of us have had babies, that the baby is born and then within the first 3, 4, 5 days loses 2, 3, 4, 500 grams, going from 3.6 to 3.2 or something.
Okay.
And it's not all liquid. It is actually the fat that was that was there that has
Okay.
to be converted to ketones to the brain to grow. And this is natural because it has always taken the mother a little while to start producing the milk.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we are fat
Interesting.
adapted from birth. Now, these African runners continue to be fat adapted because they don't have much to eat. You know, they live in rural areas.
Yeah.
They walk or run 10 kilometers to school when they're 6 years old.
Yeah.
And they walk or run 10 kilometers back to school to go and work on the farm. So they are, per default, fat adapted. No matter how much ugali they eat, you know, they're still fat adapted. So going back to the example of one fructose of 100 milliliters, or I don't know, I think it all depends on how insulin sensitive or fat adapted we are to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah. And thanks for that. I think I missed on mentioning. So Nick was born in Kenya. He was in Africa during his childhood. So I think he's definitely having the first-hand information about many of these aspects. Yeah. So thanks for that question as well. Any further questions we have? Anyone from within our group? Like,
Yogesh, if you allow me, I just wanted to add to what Nick was telling.
oh yeah, please go ahead.
Sandeep here. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, this question about, carb loading and then exercising, it's more to do with our minds, right? So I'm not an elite runner or something, but I do half marathon in say about 1 hour 50, 51. But since I started running, say in 2006, it was always fasted state, so nothing to eat before running, but it was say 4 or 5 kilometers and all that. But I used to do breakfast after that. But last 4 or 5 years, what I'm doing is I just have a buttermilk after my run because I don't feel hungry. Because since I became fat adapted, even after running 10K in a day, I don't feel hungry. So if I'm not hungry, why should I eat breakfast?
Yeah.
So my first meal is lunch. Right. And I'm doing well, and people are asking me in the office from where you get all this energy. Right.
Wonderful.
So it's the mind. I think it's in the mind. We think if I don't have this carb loading, how will I lift weight in the gym? Because I've had some colleagues, they're asking that I can't lift weight without some carbs.
Yeah.
So it's there in the mind, I think.
Yes.
So we have to get over that and focus on what you are doing. If you are running, focus on running. If you are lifting weights, focus on that. Don't think about I have not eaten carbs, so how will I be able to do it? I think that's where the block is.
Yeah.
I think in fairness, I'd like to add, it's in the mind, yes, but why is it in the mind? I'm being philosophical here. The marketing is amazing. My son has just started going to the gym. He's nearly 17 years old. The marketing and the hype of all the protein bars and all the isotonic drinks and all the stuff. And if you have a special subscription, you can take this free of charge from the vending machine, He hasn't got one of these subscriptions. And everyone is talking about it. Everyone is doing it. Yeah. It's marketing.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of this thing, dominance of big food companies over here, processed food companies over here. And thanks for chiming in, Sandeep. That was really wonderful. Thanks for sharing
this
that.
TMM, half marathon, TMM, everywhere you have those hydration stations, fastened up, reload is being, served. I was just, having a sip of water just to, wet my mouth, and I was running. It was only after I completed half marathon, I had a glass of reload.
Super.
Right. But I also had my water with salt and lemon juice, which I finished after that, So it's again, like, I don't think there was any need, and my last 4 kilometers were the best ones. So no hitting the wall or going bonk and, all those things, even without eating anything.
Wonderful.
So it's how you train your mind and body. I think both are important, and be out of that marketing of big food. I think that's important.
Very true. So I think one question over here in terms of the science of fat loss. So any thoughts on that, Nick?
I think we have to become, it's a little bit philosophical again, but this become fat adapted, get your body to start burning the fat.
Yes.
How to do this? Stop feeding it with unnecessary. I know I said calories are pseudoscience, but unnecessary junk that it doesn't even require.
Yeah, yeah.
One is the calories that I'm saying is pseudoscience, the calories, but the other is the I don't want to say poison, but the detrimental stuff we're getting through processed food, the E numbers, the vegetable oils, the ultra processed flour. Keep them away from your body, then yeah.
So Megha, what Nick just mentioned, I'll probably just simplify that for you and everyone. So what he's referring to is like processed carbs, even for that matter, the atta, the flour that we use for most of the rotis and chapatis and things and things like that. So that is to be avoided as such. Yeah, it's I'll probably take it up on behalf of Nick, right? I mean, there is nothing best as such. I think it depends on individual choice, individual preference, and things like that. So like Sandeep is here. I mean, I believe Sandeep is vegetarian, I guess. And yeah, I think Ame was here a few minutes back. He's kind of vegetarian. He probably consumes eggs. So it's nothing very compulsive as such. So you can adapt to what you are comfortable with. Sandeep, you're saying something?
No. I think my hand is raised. I think I will.
No, that's okay.
No.
Yeah. So, yeah. Any
then,
other? Yeah, sorry, Nick,
I
you're
think,
saying something.
Can I recommend that or suggest that I continue with the slides? The remaining slides are
oh yeah, please.
Anecdotal and for fun, and there'll be more questions and time for more questions. Is
Absolutely.
that okay?
Yeah, we would love to have that. Yeah, please.
Okay. There are some links here. They are, as I said, I'm going to.
Can you have you shared your screen, because I am at least not able to see that. Yeah.
That, because I wanted to share something else actually, but okay, but how to do it? I'm sharing my whole screen. Can you see it?
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, okay.
We can see that. This
is Goya, Get Off Your Ass. It's by a book written by Dr. Rajat Sahab, my friend.
Yep.
It is just get off your ass. He's creating this in India now with young girls, but you know, let's just get off our ass and do a little bit.
Yeah.
Of course, D-Life, Phil Maffetona, this that we mentioned before. I don't know why I haven't got the link here. And an article is written, the one we're talking about this morning, and of course Sashi. There's a reason why Sashi is here.
We have him over here. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, some more a little bit fun things. This is from a book, fantastic book, The Big Fat Surprise by Nina Tykons. Doctor, everything I eat is low fat. So how come I'm still fat? We've been told for the last 40 years, eat low fat, high carbs.
Yeah.
The only thing that has happened is we've got fatter.
Right.
Pata nahi na? What's going on?
Yeah.
Simple logic. I'm an engineer. Professor Tim knows. If you have to exercise to regulate your weight, then your diet is wrong. That is the most logical thing. One of the most logical things I've heard about all this nutrition science stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, if we have to exercise to keep our weight down, then something's wrong. And I have to mention that I'm a member of a triathlon club, and most of my age and above and a bit younger, and they train far more than me. And in the winter when they put on weight because they're not training as much, you say, oh, it's because I'm not training and then I'm putting on weight. It shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be like that.
Yep.
Dr. Asim Malhotra. It is very clear that added sugar has absolutely no nutritional value whatsoever. And contrary to what the food industry wants you to believe, the body doesn't require any carbohydrate for energy from added sugar. And on top of this, roti, rice, pasta, bread, cake is also converted to sugar. No nutritional value. Even wholemeal flour, no nutritional value. I know we're told, eat fiber. No nutritional value. On the contrary, fiber is something that the industry cannot sell. They cannot sell. It is, even animals won't eat fiber.
Yeah.
So they're promoting it as something good for our gut, so they can put into our biscuits and our cakes and encourage us to eat. Nothing, no nutritional value, on the contrary. Yeah. This is our friend Sashi. Crude, but very visually effective model of metabolic health improvement.
Yeah.
And Sashi, I don't think, did any exercise. I don't know, but I don't think he did. There's a couple more. Vic, my friend, he does do exercise. You can see it. He's got muscle tone, but mainly through the nutrition.
Yeah.
And Roxana, are you still here, both of you?
I guess so. Yeah.
Please comment if you're there.
Yeah. I could see Vic.
Yes.
Yeah, Roxana is. Yeah.
I have got your permission to share these, but I mean, it's amazing, isn't it?
That's yeah, I mean, unbelievable, the kind of transformations, both of them, obviously Shashi as well, but Shashi's, like you said, was not that visible. He was probably a lot more leaner, but yeah, I mean, both Vic and Roxana is amazing transformation. Thanks for sharing that. Very impactful.
I'm a toffee kind, typical
Yep.
Indian kind, lean kind.
No, but not anymore. I don't think you're toffee anymore. I don't think so.
No, not now. Yeah, absolutely not.
Now, an indication of how it should be. And I'm not trying to brag or anything, but this is how it should be.
Yeah.
If we think about it.
Yeah.
So compare photos, check size, muscle tone, tummy, hips, skin, face, cheeks. It should be more or less the same.
Even better, I would say. I mean, I'm probably, most of us would be speechless, but yeah, you probably looking a lot more younger, right? I mean, in terms of many aspects, maybe the muscle mass or whatever. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, and it's not to brag. It's just to, to put it into some sort of context.
Yeah.
And actually, something that came up in one of the last discussions was Indian workers, especially in rural areas, but we're talking manual workers. A lot of them are actually metabolically quite healthy because they maybe only eat once a day or have some tea, masala chai in the morning with sugar, okay? And they work all day drinking water, and then they eat again a meager meal in the evening.
Yeah.
They're not toffee, but they are more metabolically healthy, I would say. So,
right.
Logical recommendations from my side is try and take a photo from 5 years ago, or if you're older than 35, 10 years earlier, and compare the photos.
Yeah.
There should be as little difference as possible.
True. That's a great hack. That's a great tip. Thanks for that sharing. Yeah.
And I have to add, the way this has been pitched was actually inspired by two colleagues of mine. One that has passed away 2 months ago.
Oh.
I met him 6 years ago, and he passed away. He was very sick.
Sorry
All of a sudden, he got very sick. Yeah, but he passed away for all these metabolic reasons.
Sad.
Another of our friends, yes, sad, but he showed me some pictures of when they traveled together 5 years ago and 3 years ago. No, 6 years ago and 3 years ago.
Okay.
And I saw the pictures and what he looked like today. And there was a huge difference just 3 and 5 years ago, or 6.
Yeah. Very true. Yeah.
So,
right.
yeah, I didn't want to wrap up on a sad thing, but that's what inspired me for sure.
Yeah.
Right.
So we have a few questions, just a couple of those. Is it okay,
Yeah.
Nick? So one is
Please,
from
please.
Anjali. What's your opinion on fruits? I mean, let's say if someone wants to enjoy fruits, any particular lower limit, upper limit for the fruits? I mean, I guess you answered that in terms of how insulin sensitive one is, but anything else that you would like to add?
I would like to add a quote out of that book. I think Big Fat surprise on Roxana, and Vic can also come with other quotes.
Yep.
Fruit should be a treat. It's like in the old days, even my kids used to give them sweet on a Friday. It
Yeah.
should be in very, very small doses.
Yeah.
Fruit is not as healthy as we make it be. And actually, I can add something to that. Yes, because fruit consists of fructose, which is or fruit consists of 50% fructose, 50% glucose. Glucose, as we said, goes straight into blood. Blood, what's not used and put in the cells, goes to the liver and converted to fat. Fructose, on the other hand, it does not go into the blood as such. It cannot be metabolized. It goes straight to the liver to be converted to fat.
True.
So excessive food,
And do you like to quickly give an insight, just a quick gist about, let's say, your typical day in terms of what you eat? I mean, most of us probably can by now reckon what you eat, but very quickly, if you can cover that, your food during the day, most of the times.
I have a cup of coffee with cream in the morning. Then I don't eat anything maybe till late afternoon. Sometimes at lunch, if I have something, it might be some leftovers of meat from the night before. I might have another cup of coffee with cream, and then in the evening I have a primarily meat dish.
Okay.
And then that's it.
Thanks for that. And there's one more question. I'll quickly cover that for you, Nick. Is it necessary to do some strength? I think we've covered that a couple of times. So considering what Nick is doing, he's mostly focusing on cardio. Could be long runs, could be swims sometimes, I believe, but mostly cardio. And then he does a lot of body weight workouts, kettlebells, and those kinds of things. He never goes to the gym, right, Nick? I think he doesn't go to the gym. He don't.
No, I don't know. I haven't been to the gym
So
for
no
long.
subscriptions is what I think Nick mentioned. So most of the things are free, available in nature. We should be making use of that as much as possible, right, Nick? That is what I think your message is. Yeah. Okay. So any other questions? Anybody?
Hi, Nick. Yogesh, this is Poshni here.
Hey, Poshni.
So I just wanted to ask, what would be a good place if somebody needed to get started into running? Maybe you can touch upon that. Have been on low carb for some time.
I would suggest some shorts or a skirt and then some running shoes or sandals, and then just go outside.
All right.
I mean, cello. I mean, there's no need to make it more complicated than it has to be. And we can walk, run, and then build.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, this is going to be a little cliched. I don't know, but do you count how much protein that you're consuming every single day? Most likely not. I mean, I reckon.
No.
But that must be upwards of 100 grams per day. More than that, a lot more than that.
I really have no idea. I honestly have no idea. I went from a lifestyle of high carbs, very high carbs, where I was really measuring a lot of stuff and pulse watch and stuff, but to no measuring. I just cannot.
So I'll quickly respond to DY, right? I mean, Kulkarni. So most of them, they may not be even taking account, because one thing is for sure that they're extremely low on carbs, and then obviously they have to be very high in terms of proteins and fat. So and most of them, I think most of us also may not be exactly counting to the every single gram of protein as such. So I think it happens once you change your lifestyle. I think that's the most important thing Nick is trying to cover, is about the lifestyle change. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
Good afternoon. My question is, Nick, as you mentioned that you don't go to the gym, but how do you maintain such lean body and muscle tone in spite of not going to the gym? I go to the gym, I strength train, but I still face this issue of loose and saggy skin. And I want to tone it and prevent further sagging of skin, because I have I have a huge amount of weight to lose. So can you give me some tips on that, to have a lean body and toned body, without going to the gym?
Vic, do you want to answer that? Because you'll be able to answer better than me, because I've always been slim. I've always looked more or less like I look today, but I've always done some exercise. You know, I've done push-ups, I've done squats, I've done things like that almost every day, and I don't do huge amounts. No, I don't. And I've probably always been fat adapted, even when no, that's not true, but I was used to eat a lot of carbohydrates, but I never put on weight. Vic, is it unfair for me to ask you to help?
Yeah, Vic,
No, would be my pleasure.
Please.
I mean, going back to that, I mean, from what, you know, listen, at the end of the day, I don't know if I'm fortunate, if it's the way it was, or actually I know a little bit of what I didn't end up getting. I mean, listen, I was 300 pounds and I lost in excess of 100 pounds. I lost 110 pounds. And it was all done via, I was also practicing intermittent fasting. So we learned that, you know, intermittent fasting, I mean, you know, I don't know if it's anecdotal or not, but that we will tend to have less issues with lagging skin if we're incorporating intermittent fasting. So the extent of I'm not saying I don't have any lagging skin at all, but, you know, I do have a slight pouch which I'm still working on for improving my body composition. But overall, yeah, I mean, I do a lot of strength training. I do a lot of resistance training. I do a lot of heavy lifting, and that will definitely help tone your body. I hope that helps. If there's any other questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Vic, thank you very much. I'd forgotten about the intermittent fasting, because that is autophagy. The autophagy is a Greek word. Eating, phagy is eating, auto is auto eating the cells, healthy cells eating the old damaged cells, and that kicks in with fasting. Thanks.
Yeah, so thanks, Vic, and that was definitely straight from someone who's like gone through such a big transformation. I would like to add, I mean, to the question that was being asked. So I think we should definitely get started, and some of these aftermaths I think would be probably cosmetic or aesthetic in nature, but the more important thing is about your physical, physiological health, metabolic health, right? So we need to be bringing that up to certain range and level, and then start worrying about aesthetics, is what my simple take is. Because if we always fear about what can happen to, let's say, some of these aspects which are like purely aesthetic in nature, we are going to be, I mean, impacting a lot of other important aspects like metabolic health. So I mean, we need to be like Nick also mentioned in the beginning, we should prioritize what is important for us, right? And the metabolic health is definitely something which has to be prioritized, probably at the highest level as such. Yeah, I'll take a pause. Any other questions? Otherwise, I think we are almost getting closer to our scheduled time. But any, let's say, last couple of questions, if anyone has.
So is there any like, how do we determine that how much protein we need daily, and what is the consequence of not having proper protein after a good workout, like a strength training workout? What can actually happen? Because it's kind of sometimes I'm not able to meet the protein criteria and I don't know how to calculate it. So for a layman, how to determine that, and what can happen if I don't take proper protein after the workout?
I don't know if I'm the right person to answer, but let me try, because I'm purely layman.
Yeah.
If you don't eat any carbohydrates and don't eat protein and fat, then you're covered. In the long run, you are covered.
Yeah.
I mean, because you have to eat.
Yeah, what Nick has mentioned, a very important aspect is essentially you have to be reducing your carbs to a large extent. And like I also mentioned a few minutes back, the only option that remains with you is like increasing your fats and protein, and you don't even have to be counting that. I think once you even start in a very crude manner, rebalancing these things, you'll get to understand a lot more. Just a quick reference point. It has to be your lean body mass. So someone is weighing around 70 kgs and which is healthy weight for that person, even being, let's say, male or female. That person has to be consuming around 70 grams of protein every single day. That protein has to come from first class protein sources like dairy, meat, non-vegetarian foods and things like that. It cannot be, most likely it cannot be dal and things like that. So I think I've covered most of the things that you asked for. Yeah. Yeah. Any questions? Otherwise, we can. So anything else? Anup, you'd like to have any concluding thoughts?
So we can take protein shake. There's no harm in that, right?
You
If we're
can.
not
Yeah.
able to-
Yeah.
Okay.
As long as there's no sugar in it, but usually there is.
Okay.
Especially the chocolates that are added.
So what about
Right.
BCAA? That's also good, right?
BCAA is sugar, right, sir?
And yeah, so Megha, I think we are getting into intricacies which are not even required. I mean, what we are looking at is like balancing that through food first. And once it is not met, we probably would need to be looking at supplements, be it BCA or protein shakes or whatnot. But the most important thing is looking at your lifestyle, changing the lifestyle, bringing the right food onto the plate and things like that. So all the other things can queue up for a little
Yes,
later.
sir.
That's fine.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Megha, my answer would be get a right coach. Because,
Yes.
it is
Yes.
too difficult to cover each and every detail.
Yeah.
Especially with respect to diet. In low carb world, there is no diet chart which is given out like mainstream dietitians give you in 100 rupees or
Yeah.
200 rupees. So you have to get a coach personalized, he attends to all your queries. That would be the way forward. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you, sir.
Someone
I'd
has
like
asked
to add,
before that, I mean,
okay.
just one thing, someone has asked for millets. Millets is not to be discussed over here. I mean, so Nick, definitely don't consume anything about millets. So I'll skip that
No.
question. Yeah. So sorry, I mean, Anup, back to you.
Yeah, that's all.
I would like to add that Vic and Roxana, they've got two very good comments on this. Protein should come from whole food,
Yeah.
not shakes. Number one. And Vic,
Absolutely.
best advice I can give is eat your protein as opposed to drinking it. Excellent. That it's so simplified. Yes. Excellent.
No, absolutely. I mean, thanks for sharing that, both of you, Roxana as well as Vic. Commendable. And coming from both of you who have gone through this transition, right? I mean, that makes a whole lot of sense. Yeah. So, okay. So I think we've covered most of the things. Anything else, Nick, probably you'd like to share, or we are almost gotten over with everything that you thought of covering?
No, I'm okay. What I discussed briefly with Sandeep last night, I'll create a new one on hydration, nutrition, hydration, and maybe also nutrition for sports, for endurance sports.
Yeah.
Because I think what is happening in India is, I know it's hotter, of course, but the industry is really taking over, and how much we have to drink of sports drinks and blah 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 blah. Not so needed.
Wonderful. So I believe we are coming to an end of this wonderful session. Thanks, Nick, for your time. And moreover, I think Vic and Roxana as well, because it is definitely a lot inconvenient time. Thanks for taking time out and then being available at such an early hour. So Nick, looking forward to having probably a few more sessions. And I know that you have a lot to share. In fact, some of you who have joined, be it Vic, be it Roxana, be it even Sandeep, many of you can have, let's say, an independent sessions on many of the experiences that you've been having. So I'll leave it with that particular thought. Thanks for all the viewers and Shashi and Anup for arranging this particular podcast with Nick. I would, yeah, I mean, and then I think happy Holi, everyone. Nick, you also will be looking forward to the Holi. So Holi ki shubhakamnaएं. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.